This episode of Raw the Podcast is brought to you by TheCheekyClean Collagen. Collagen is the most abundant form of protein in the body, and as we age, we lose it naturally, which is why supplementing has become very popular for anti-aging. However, all supplements are not made equal, and when it comes to collagen, most on the market are ineffective at best or potentially contaminated at worst. Everything from low-quality sourcing to heavy metals. So I used my ingredient background from the chemical industry to create my own, a product that I could use daily to not only glow from the inside out, but also improve my overall total health, everything from skin, hair, and nails to joints, bones, brain, and gut health. This is an overall daily habit to support your overall well-being. And here's what makes it different. The TheCheekyClean Collagen has 5 types of multi-sourced collagen from safe sources, pasture-raised, wild-caught, and grass-fed to assure the highest quality and effectiveness. This also contains vitamin C as well as silica derived from bamboo sources. The silica and the vitamin C make the collagen super effective, safe sourced, and an easy addition to your daily routine. Because it's unflavored with absolutely no chemical additives or additional ingredients besides the high-quality product itself, you can mix it seamlessly into any beverage of your choice, whether that's your daily tea or coffee, smoothie, Greek yogurt, bake with it. The options are endless. It is my honor to offer our Raw the Podcast listeners a deal to shop the collagen today at ConsciousCart.com with the code RAW10 for 10% off. That's ConsciousCart.com, code RAW10 for 10% off the cleanest, most effective collagen on the market. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I'm honored to learn more and live better with you. Welcome back to Raw the Podcast. I'm your host, Allie, founder of TheCheekyClean, a wellness brand empowering conscious living. And I'm so happy to be here today with Marisa. Marisa Barber is the Senior Manager of Patient Support Services for a telehealth addiction treatment program. And she's also the author of The Other Side of Addiction, a book that shares the often overlooked stories of family members and loved ones impacted by addiction. With both professional experience in the substance use field and personal experience navigating the challenges addiction brings to families, she's passionate about changing the conversation around addiction and ensuring loved ones feel seen, heard, and supported. Through her writing and advocacy, she hopes to break the stigma and bring more compassion, understanding, and support to families everywhere. Marisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on.
I am excited to be here.
We were chatting it up before we hit record, and I just feel like even though this is technically the second time we've met in person.
Yes.
First time we've really gotten to know each other. And I feel like we're just going to be friends for life, girl. You have like a beautiful energy about you and you're doing super powerful work. So it's super cool that you were willing to come on and talk about it today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is going to be exciting.
Yes, I'm so glad to have you. So I want to go back a little bit. First and foremost, I'm very intrigued by being an author in general, because I think it takes real courage to put your work into the world in a way like that. But I'm also very interested in addiction, the science of addiction, the way that it affects families. I think oftentimes as a society, we kind of normalize addiction, and it's more and more common with things even outside of substances, with phones and social media and just like this constant need to escape reality.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated by it, fascinated by the brain. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, it would be so awesome to have you on the show because I'd love to learn more about it. Was writing a book something that was on your horizon, or growing up, is that something you wanted to do? Or is this something that kind of came about more recently?
It was kind of on the horizon, but I wasn't serious about it yet.
Okay.
I'd say a little over a year ago, I started putting feelers out to see who would be interested, if anybody, in sharing their story. Addiction is such a vulnerable topic and it's tough to talk about.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't sure what kind of interest I would get. And so there were a couple people that had said that they were interested, but then when it came down to it, was a little too much to discuss and to kind of dig to relive a lot of the experiences. And so I started it, but it was moving very slow. And then I'd say in the beginning of this year, probably 6-7 months ago, everything started to move very quickly. I kept running into conversations with people where then I would say, would you be interested in sharing your story? Or there were people, that from my close circle that I was reaching out to, would you be interested in sharing? Of course, gave them the option, you can remain anonymous. And I just started getting a ton of interest. And so the last 7 months have been full go with interviewing, gathering the stories, and putting everything together.
So cool. I love the premise of it because I do think so often it's stories that are told from the perspective of those who have been through the addiction versus the family members. But it is a disease that affects everyone around us, right? And so I think it's so unique to come from that perspective. What you said you've been in your current role now. Tell us a little bit about what your current professional job is and how it relates to your desire to write the book.
Yeah. So I am just about 5 years at my company. It's a telehealth company. So we treat patients with opiate use and alcohol use disorder virtually. So we have an app. Patients download the app and they can see their providers through a video visit. And so it's very convenient, very low barrier, and that's the goal.
Yeah.
And we provide peer support services so they can be paired up with somebody who has lived experience with recovery. And we have case managers and we have clinicians and RNs. And so it's a very supportive program.
Okay.
And then they have prescribed medications that get sent to their local pharmacy. So they might be seeing a clinician from a different state, and their medication gets sent to their local pharmacy. So we prescribe Suboxone, which is primarily the medication that we prescribe for opiate use. And we are a very rapid growing company. There are, there's just a lot of barriers when it comes to in-person treatment. Patients may not have transportation.
Right.
Patients may be able to get to a Suboxone clinic, but then they have to get to the pharmacy. And if they have to see a probation officer and they have to see a therapist, and they're all in different places. So the idea of this is for everybody to be able to be seen where they're at and when they're ready. So if you're a single mom and you are in the carpool line, you're waiting at school to pick up your kids and have some downtime, you can hop on, see your provider. And so it's been incredible seeing the lives that we have impacted and the number of patients that have shared incredible reviews of how this makes treatment actually manageable and
accessible.
Exactly. So it's been really cool. We also, you get the occasional call from a family member that's asking about our program and wanting information for their loved one. And you just hear, the pain and the desperation in their voice of like, how can I help my spouse, my child, my sibling? And so those calls are tough, and it really highlights that extra mile that these family members are going, trying to find treatment for a loved one who may not be ready for treatment.
Yeah.
They are trying to navigate somebody else's addiction, and it's very tough.
Yeah, that's so challenging. What is Suboxone?
Suboxone is, yes, it's a medication that is prescribed for patients who are using opiates, and it is an opiate blocker. So it latches to your opiate receptors. And if you were to use opiates after you took your medication, your opiate receptors are blocked. So you essentially can't get high. It also helps with cravings. And so when you're, especially in early recovery, and you're trying to, work through cravings and triggers, it's really beneficial for that too.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And the majority of the people that you're working with in the professional space are addicted to opiates?
Yeah. We have, I'd say probably 95% of our patients are seeking treatment for opiates, and then the remaining are seeking for alcohol, but there is an overlap where some are seeking treatment for both.
Yeah.
So it is primarily opiates.
That's so interesting. Okay, so having this professional role where you're speaking with people navigating such a challenging time in their lives, what made you personally want to tell the story of the other side and not these direct people who are actually the ones going through the addiction?
Yeah. So in my 20s, I was in a relationship with someone who struggled with opiates, and I navigated that journey alongside of him of going to inpatient facilities, outpatient facilities, being on Suboxone, being on Vivitrol and other like medically assisted treatment programs and AA meetings and sober livings and just all of it. And I was on that side where I'm trying to navigate somebody else's addiction that I have no control over. But you're watching this person spiral and you're watching them lose themselves to the substance, and you do whatever you can to try to make them realize, or giving ultimatums or giving threats. And it doesn't work, because if they're not ready to stop, there's nothing that you can say that's going to change that.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of at war with yourself, where you're trying to figure out, like, at what point do I let go, and how, and does that feel right? Or am I abandoning them? And setting boundaries and finding resources and support. And there's not a lot. I felt totally stigmatized, where it's like, I'm not the one using the substances, but I'm still being treated, the same way, or, being judged, being gossiped about. And so I just kind of kept everything to myself, because I didn't see any value in sharing what was going on with him, because it gave a negative view on him, but also myself. And so it's totally something that you kind of just navigate alone.
Yeah.
And in 2018, he passed away from a drug overdose. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So after that, I
While
wanted
you were
to
together?
Yes. We were together. He was 8 months sober.
My gosh.
And he was just about a week out of being in a sober living, and just completely started shifting mindset as soon as he left. He, wasn't going to meetings, and the things that were taking place while he had that structure of the facility just completely went away very quickly. And so he started using, and it lasted about 3 days, and then he passed away. So it was, a couple days of complete downward spiral.
Yeah.
And so after that, I wanted to move into the field of work, and I wanted to prior to that, but I had a job in a different industry. I went to school for criminal justice.
Wow.
So I always wanted to be a probation officer. And when I was in college, I did an internship, and I was like, I don't know, I feel like more drawn to recovery rather, than punishment, rehabilitation industry. So I always wanted to, but that then pushed me. After he passed away, I was like, I have a lot of experience, and I can't let that go to waste. So I got a couple different certifications just to become, familiar with the professional industry. And then I got my job that I'm at now. So then I've been there for 5 years, seeing it from the patient side. And so it's very interesting watching both worlds, where you're seeing, like, what's going on with the person who's using, and then what collateral damage is that causing among the family and friends around them. So that kind of is what made me want to share people's stories, because I felt like their stories are so silenced and they navigate it alone, and just really give them a voice.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Wow. That's really powerful, and kind of goes to show how there is no coincidence in this life.
Right.
And the way that your entire path has led you here, and writing this book is really beautiful and incredible. How you navigate that situation of being so in love with someone who is so captivated and lost within this
addiction has to be such a roller coaster of an experience.
Exactly.
And I almost feel like, and you can speak to this and tell me, but it's like hearing you say how you had to be almost like keeping it to yourself and navigating it alone. It's almost like I could imagine you're starting to also carry this shame and guilt and all of these same things, these really painful emotions that oftentimes an addict carries and is reasons why they end up using again. And you're doing this in a conscious state of sobriety.
Yeah.
And almost like blinded by this love of this person that you just want to be okay.
Exactly.
How, what would you say from the stories that you've connected with others on and yours itself? Like what resources or advice would you give someone who is navigating that alone? Like, do you think if you could go back and knowing now, like what you would look to a resource or share with someone that was a professional and manage it in a way that maybe allowed you to not carry such a heavy weight? Or do you think it's kind of just something that you have to like navigate and go through in time as the relationship progresses?
I think it's a little bit of both. Are you familiar with Al-Anon?
Mm-hmm.
So I started going to Al-Anon and it was helpful. But outside of that, there's not really a lot of resources.
Yeah.
It's not a topic that's talked about often. Like podcasts weren't what they are now. Back then, I'm sure there's a lot of very helpful podcasts for family members and loved ones now. At the time, I would maybe find something on social media and connect with that person where I would follow their posts or something like that. But I think that the second part of what you said is kind of just like you're just in it and you're kind of just along for the ride. I think the most beneficial thing for somebody is to have like a support group, whether it's like your coworkers or if it's a group of people who are going through the same thing as you, which is where you kind of plug in with people from Al-Anon. But I think it's just always going to be there no matter what you're doing to better your mental health throughout it, because people are going to judge and people are going to talk. And even though, you're not the one using, there were so many times where I was like, if this is how I feel, I can't imagine how he feels because I'm not doing it. And just being associated with him, I'm being treated differently.
Yeah.
My job that I was at the time, I worked in a small little office and we were all pretty close. I never told them that was at the time still using when I first started there. But then those 8 months that he was in the sober living, I was working at my job and I would talk about him. And at that point, they were normal conversations because he was sober. So we were doing normal things and I would talk about him, but I never told anybody, oh, he's in recovery, he's newly sober, anything like that. So when he died, we put in the obituary how he died because while we were at the funeral home, we were discussing like, what do we want to say? We want to say that he lost his battle with addiction because that if we don't, it's contributing to the stigma of like, well, what happened? You can't even say how he died because people are going to judge. So I was with his family and we were discussing like, no, let's say it. So once the obituary came out, people like my coworkers who didn't know, they were like, it's kind of like, oh, I didn't realize that that's how it was. And they were all supportive. The people that I worked with were amazing. But you see this shift where it's like when they didn't know, they probably thought differently of me. But by that point, they built a relationship with me. So I'm already working with you guys. And now you find this out. But if you found this out on my first day of work, would I be viewed differently? And probably yes, even just subconsciously. Like I said, everyone I worked with at my last job, they were amazing. I'm still in touch with them. But there's just something about like,
just the societal shame in general.
And that's what I'm hoping if more people talk about it. It's not rare. It feels rare because most people don't talk about it. But if you feel confident enough sharing your story, you're going to run into someone very quickly that has the same story as you. And then you can lean on them for support and you can lean on them, for navigating the experience together. But, you might be sitting next to somebody that has the same exact thing going on in their life, but you don't know because neither one of you are going to say anything about it.
And it's such a painful thing, and to have to navigate it alone and without resources, really. I mean, Al-Anon is an incredible resource. It's something that I think 12-step in general, I'm like passionate about because I don't feel like anyone our age really taps into it in the way that it's available for. It's like having community to navigate these really hard dynamics with is life-changing. And oftentimes we don't even know that we have those in our community until it's after the fact.
Exactly.
You know? But it is such an interesting thing because you're also like, is this my story to tell kind of thing? Like, you know, like there's this dynamic of like, you said guilt around like this is their thing and I don't want to put any more like shame or negativity towards them. And it's like people can still be really incredible people, but also have a really bad addiction.
Yeah.
And it changes everything. And that's been for me something that I've navigated. I think before we got started, I was telling you a little bit about this relationship that I was in that was not so healthy. And I was really trying to like shift a lot of things in my life. And I was opening up to a friend about like this dynamic with this relationship. And just out of nowhere, she goes, "Has there ever been anyone in your life who is an addict? Like in your close family?" And I couldn't even really say it. And even now, like, I don't really like, it's hard to say it because no one in my family really talks about it. But my dad was definitely an alcoholic. And it's just something that we completely normalized as a family.
Yep.
And she was like, "I think you should come to an Al-Anon meeting with me." And it like kicked off this healing journey for me.
Yeah.
That changed my life.
I just got chills. Yeah, it totally does.
Yeah. And
you can apply it to every area of your life.
Yeah. And it's like, even though this is someone else's story, there is part of you that is carrying this weight of living it alongside them.
Yes.
And it's so freeing to be able to connect with community that understands that. And it's okay. And it's beautiful to share that story. So, I mean, what a powerful way to not only honor your experience, but honor your boyfriend's legacy and help so many other people in his honor, allowing them to share their stories too.
Yep.
So beautiful.
Thank you.
Were there any times when you thought like, I should just leave this relationship, or that, you know, like what made you stay?
Yeah. I think what made me stay, I thought about leaving, yes. And I think what made me stay, you get these periods of sobriety and everything is normal. And you get a glimpse of like what life would be like if they stayed sober.
Yeah.
And so you're constantly working back to that. So whether the period of sobriety lasted 3 days or if it was a year, you keep wanting to get back to that. And we have no control over that, you know? And so it's like, you're, like I said, you're kind of at war with yourself because you're like, I want to get back to this, but you have no control over getting back to that. It is entirely up to them. And so that piece makes it very hard because you get, like you mentioned, just because you have a bad addiction doesn't mean you're a bad person. And through my relationship with him, and then also with people that I met through his rehab friends or people who are incarcerated or just anybody from that world, they oftentimes are like the nicest, most loyal, genuine, compassionate, generous, artistic, creative, funny, fun. They're it's just like such a light of a person. And I see posts on social media when someone passes away and it's from an overdose and you see them telling about the person and what they, you know, they're the brightest light. They were the funniest person. They lit up the room. And it's just so interesting because people just assume you have an addiction, you're just not a good person. Right. And so with the writings, I asked the contributors, I want you to describe them to me outside of their addiction so you can get a picture of like who these people are because they have so much to give. And as soon as you find out that that person struggles with addiction, that's all that you kind of remember about
Right.
them. You don't remember how funny they are.
Yes.
You don't remember how athletic they are, or that, you know, they would give the shirt off their back. It's just like, oh, that person, you know. And so I think that it's just really important to keep at the forefront, like, who these people are. And because someone was incarcerated for drug offenses, again, that does not make them a bad person. And I think societies, we're scared of those people. Those people are criminals. And when I met his friends, I'm like, these guys are awesome. Like, they're very cool people.
100%. And I do think there's this dynamic of like depth and consciousness in a way that many people with addiction struggle with, because it's almost like they see so clearly, that they can feel so much and are so sensitive to not only the creative and beautiful parts of this life experience, but then also the hard, challenging parts of this life experience.
Yeah.
And it is often the most beautiful work and creatives and kindest hearts that navigate this incredible challenge. And removing that stigma as a society is something that we have such a long way to go in.
Yeah.
And it's like we have to start finding compassion. And I think the only way is through real raw experience.
Yeah.
And it's just so interesting because I didn't even know that part of your story, but I think it's so cool that you've been willing to share it here today, because I always say, like, you can learn so much more from connecting with one person's real experience than you can in textbooks.
Exactly.
Because when you can see someone or hear someone and be like, okay, they navigated this, I can too.
Yep.
And that's a ripple effect of opportunity for healing for the collective.
Exactly. You realize there's life on the other side of it. Like, if you would have told me, you know, in 2017 version of me, that this would be my life, that I'm working in this field, that I'm writing a book, that I'm building this community, I would have never believed it, because it feels so hopeless when you're in it. You're like, there's nothing on the other side of this. And if there is anything, it's like death. You're facing like, this person may die. This person, you know, may end up incarcerated. This person, you know, you don't really know what's going to happen, and you just hope for recovery for them. But even at that, that's a lot to navigate on the other side of it too.
Absolutely.
And so it's just like, you feel like there's no hope on the other side, but there is. And once you start connecting and finding purpose and finding community, it allows you to realize, like, okay, like, through those experiences brought me here, and like, there is life on the other side of it. And so when you provide that hope to somebody who's in it, I think it just completely changes the game for them.
Absolutely. And it's that connection and purpose and community that's probably given you strength to navigate your grief.
Yeah, for sure. I have a village.
Yeah. And I think is going to now be the way that you're able to give so many other people that strength.
Yeah, and I actually found it to be very healing once I started talking about it, because it wasn't until after he died that I openly would just talk about it.
Yeah.
Whether it was his active use, whether it was his recovery, whether it was after he died, talking about something is just healing.
Totally.
And when you're talking about it to somebody who understands and who has empathy and who has compassion, it's even more healing.
Yeah.
And it encourages you to want to talk about it more. So there's a part in the back of the book about healing through storytelling. And after I wrapped up with each contributor, I got messages from pretty much every single one of them being like, this was the start of my healing journey. This was the piece of my healing journey I was missing. You gave me a voice. You allowed me to reflect and like talk through these things. Even though it was painful, it's something that like you kind of stuff down.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't want to talk about my son, or I don't want to talk about my wife and their addiction. And so you kind of just stuff it down. But sharing their stories forced them to really reflect and walk through all of it. And there's healing in that. And so a lot of the writers said that they like were so grateful for that piece of this.
So what was the process of connecting with people and identifying who could be a good fit as a contributor? And then would you just kind of like send them a template? Would you meet with them in person, on the phone? Like, how did that dynamic work?
Yeah, I did exactly that. So unfortunately, if you sit and you scroll through your social media, you scroll through your phone contacts, there's so many people that we all know, you know, like personally, that are in this situation or have lost somebody. And so I reached out to people that I know, and I also stumbled my way into conversations with people that, you know, mentioned something about addiction. And then I told them about my book, and then I asked if they'd want to write. So it sadly for life, but it was good for my book. I didn't have to go very far to find the 31 people.
Yeah, 31. Wow.
And I had to cut it because I kept running. It just kept like organically coming up. And I was like, I think I need to stop it because it's going to get too long and it's heavy. It's very heavy. Everybody who has read it so far has had to take breaks. It's very emotional. And so I'm thinking like, I need to draw the line where I'm at. And I was happy with, I had parents, I had step-parent, siblings, cousins. I got every angle. And so I was like, this is where I'm going to end it. But I could have definitely used a lot more. But so then I reached out to them and just like let them sit with it. I didn't want a yes or no answer. Just like, here's what it is. Reach out to me if you're interested. So then the folks that did reach back out to me, then I gave them a writing prompt and I let them read it and just see, now, how do you feel about this? Because along the way, a lot of people dropped out. There were people who wanted to write and they started and they couldn't. There were people who, you know, started getting just even their thoughts before they even got anything on paper, and they had to completely step back. Because it's very triggering. And when you're just dealing with life and then you throw that on top of it, like it was just too much for a lot of people. So
challenging.
Very, very challenging.
In that way that's so vulnerable.
You're sitting down and you're being so vulnerable with yourself, but then you know the whole world is going to see it. And so it's intimidating. And so I let people then sit with the prompt and just play around with it. Like it was just a bunch of questions. And so some people used the prompt, sent it back to me, and I turned it into a story. Some people wanted to sit down with me. So then I did interview style with probably half of the people. I sat down, asked them their questions. And I found that those ones were awesome because you end up organically just moving into different parts of conversations. They were sharing more than they probably would have if they were just behind a screen answering the questions. So some of them answered, some of them I interviewed. And then there were a few people who like really genuinely enjoy writing. And they were like, can I just write mine? And so I gave them the prompt. They followed that. I think you probably used like outline format and then just kind of like rolled from there. Some people just sat down and just wrote.
Wow.
So there was a mixture between them doing it and me interviewing them.
Yeah. And you brought me a copy. I'm so excited to read it.
Yes.
But so did you like tweak them and make it flow and like do some writing to like allow it to be kind of in a flowing state throughout the book?
Very much. It got easier as I went on. At first I was like, what am I getting myself into? Like, I'm not a writer by any means.
Well, you are now.
Yeah, now I am. I'm like, okay, I just added something to my resume. But so it was a little tough the first few, trying to make sure that like I kept the emotion, but still provided, like sometimes I would add a little bit so that people could understand, like someone mentioned Suboxone and I just added like right after what that means. Like for some readers who might not know. And so there was just, I told them, get your thoughts on paper and get your emotion on paper, and then I'll make it flow. Like, I want you to give me as much emotion as you can because that's the piece I can't add. So I made sure that if they were writing, that they just were like as emotional and vulnerable as possible. And then as I worked through them, it became easier. And I think it was just kind of a skill that I built to make it flow and just kind of tweak where needed.
So powerful. Were there any like consistent themes as the stories came together that you felt were almost kind of like important messages?
Yeah, it's crazy whether it's a parent talking about their kid, a person talking about their sister. It was like, it's the same storyline with different people and different details around it. But there was a lot of like tug of war with like love and boundaries and like fear and support. And like you're watching this flip flop, and even during some of the interviews, I'm like, give me, like, if you're mad in this paragraph, but you're sad in this paragraph, like, that's exactly what we want. That's normal. And that's what we want the readers to see, because it's not linear. It is not just one emotion. You can wake up scared and then you end up in a conversation with this person, and then maybe you try to set a boundary. It doesn't go well. Now you're mad. Then a couple hours later, you're starting to feel guilt. So you're just going through all of these. You mentioned emotional roller coaster in the beginning. That's what it is because it's like there isn't like one reaction to watching somebody do that to themselves in their lives. And then you're kind of pulled along for the ride. So I was seeing the theme of like trying to keep ending back up at support and love, but then being overcome by other feelings, fear and guilt. And I also wanted to reassure them too, every chance I got, that like there is no roadmap and there is no right way.
Right.
And so whatever you did is what you needed to do in that moment.
Right.
You can tell yourself, I'm not going to enable. And then you end up, I'm not a parent, so I can't speak on if my son or daughter was experiencing this, like how I would navigate it. But there are some times maybe where you give more than you should, or you're being taken advantage of. And there's also times where you set boundaries and then you feel guilt and you're scared. And, I'd say one of the common themes too is just like constant anxiety. You're like waiting for a phone call. You're waiting for the next shoe to drop. So they're all living that same emotional roller coaster.
Did you get any sort of sense of, and, pulling from your experience as well, but how then you navigate the aftermath, right? So it's like now you, having lived the experience that you did, but now all of these other people who have loved someone with addiction, like, how do you get your body out of that fight or flight?
It's tough and I'm still working on it. I feel like you don't realize how much of a toll it's taking on you while it's going on.
Exactly. You're in survival mode.
You are in survival mode. And it wasn't until years. So after he passed away, I had a handful of seasons of life where I was just, spending time with my family, spending time in nature, being outdoors, like just kind of like decompressing. And, I got into yoga and just a lot of things that I intended on, like, okay, I need a reset. But it's not until like even years down the road that there are things like gut health issues or something that you run into and you're like, could this have been a cause of stress and anxiety and living in fight or flight for years? And so it's a newer part that I'm kind of trying to like work through and pull apart of like, it could be, and I guess I'll never know, but I was, constantly stressed, constantly anxious. And those two things, when, your body is under constant stress and anxiety, like takes a toll on you in ways you wouldn't think. Like I mentioned, gut health and different things like that. So you could mentally reset and like find your baseline again, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other things that are still taking place. And so I think that it's one of the things I want to do going forward is like build a community and help the people that are in it work on exactly what you're talking about. Because you let yourself go, you're not eating healthy, you're anxious, so you're not eating at all. You're not sleeping well because you're stressed and you're worried. You're just not present. And when you're doing all of those things, it's taking a toll on your body.
100%.
And so
and
for
your
me,
mind.
and your mind,
Yes.
it's very crazy. And like I said, when you're in it, you don't really realize, and it just kind of becomes normal. Like I'm operating in fight or flight, but that's what I'm used to. So you don't really think anything of it. But when I look back, I'm just like, I can't believe, I feel bad because now I am very much into health and wellness. And I look back and I'm like, my poor body, like I was doing so much damage to it from the constant stress and anxiety. And so, yeah, that's one piece that I want to work towards in the future is like helping people, whether your loved one is alive and using still, or if it's the aftermath, maybe they're in long-term recovery or they have passed away. How do you get back to your baseline and make sure that you are healthy mentally and physically?
The nervous system and the stress levels, it is so important. And I always say that like the physical side is, like even on like the living clean and stuff, it's like you could do so much not eating certain ingredients and always eating whole real foods. But if you're living in this state
Yep.
of fear and cortisol spiked and fight or flight,
Yep.
your body becomes accustomed to that state and it changes the chemistry of your body. And
Absolutely.
so it's very common down the line to have these issues that become really prevalent. And it's this dynamic of the brain neurochemically is more comfortable in a familiar hell
Yep.
than in uncertainty.
Yep. Exactly.
So coming out of that is not something that is by any means easy.
Nope.
And oftentimes is hard to even become conscious of how stuck in that you still are, and these effects that you're having. I mean, it's so challenging. I think that's such a beautiful opportunity you're helping so many by just sharing these stories and your story, but women in general, like, we carry this weight sometimes. And then it's like you add in this deep love for someone who you can't fix. And I can only imagine like how hard it is to then like start to unravel that stress that the body has carried.
And that's something that I totally didn't think of. I underestimated, like, once I started building my life, my career, I bought my house, I had new hobbies, I was having like meaningful friendships and trying to surround myself with like peace and things that were good for me mentally. And like I said, it wasn't until years after that I'm like, I think this actually did some damage to my body, not just my mind. Like, mentally, I feel like, okay, I am like on the other side of the healing.
Yep.
I love slow flow yoga and yin yoga, and I'm like doing the things for me mentally. I started seeing a holistic doctor a couple years ago, and he mentioned how high my cortisol levels were, and I was at peace in my life. And I was like, he asked, "Are you stressed?" I said, "No." And that's kind of where the red flag went off, that I was like, maybe my body is literally not recovered the way that I thought it was.
And sometimes it's like it takes
time
getting into that state of mental peace for your body to finally be like, okay, we can come out of this now. And now you have to like deal with this dynamic of what's really going on, because you're not in this like heightened state of adrenaline and like, the ability to function at that level. It's like now you are learning the tools to live in a non-survival mode, but your body doesn't know any other way.
Exactly.
That's so interesting and such an important part of healing that I think we're like still just at like the tip of in the wellness industry.
Yeah, there's a long way to go.
Such a long way to go. Do you find that there's been any trends or themes that you've seen both in your work with the book, but then also in your career in this space, as to why these substance abuse and addictions continue to be affecting so many people?
I don't think I've seen a theme. As far as the book goes, if you sit down and talk with 10 people in recovery or 10 people who are in their active use, I think a lot of it goes back to self-medicating for whatever you're self-medicating for, and that could be so many things, and trauma.
Yeah.
Those two seem to be common themes. Childhood trauma, just something that you're trying to numb or silence. And the same goes for like self-medicating. You're trying to, I think it's Matthew McConaughey's book where he says the first time he did heroin that he thought, this is what normal people probably feel like.
Totally.
So it's like you use this substance and you feel normal. Or like if you have a social anxiety
Mm-hmm.
disorder and you drink and it makes you feel normal, well, then you're going to keep drinking because you want to feel normal and you want to socialize.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of it is around that.
Yeah. And I think there's just such an opportunity for education and awareness around how to like navigate this like complex chemistry that we live in inside of our bodies. And like societally, you know, it's like these things that are the norm aren't, you know, like we're all individual people and everyone is like navigating something, and it's this like almost constant pressure to have to be like, I don't know, it's just and then you throw in the fact that like there are systems in place that don't necessarily encourage us or teach us to like self-regulate in a safe way or navigate how to handle trauma at a young age. And you know, maybe that's a good thing with like the social media rise, is like learning hopefully at younger and younger ages of like what type of resources are available to navigate these type of issues and pain that people may carry from childhood, chemical imbalances, like whatever it may be, because so often it just seems like, you know, there's these like band-aids that are given that just end up compounding into never having the opportunity to navigate and heal from that root cause.
Exactly.
And then it just snowballs.
It snowballs, exactly.
Yeah. And it's just so crazy to think of how many people are suffering from addiction.
So
or
many.
know someone who is.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
many.
I, the last couple months leading to me publishing the book, I would take my computer and like go to get dinner and sit alone in a restaurant just to like get out of my house and just be in the zone writing. And so I was at a restaurant and I'm waiting for my table and I'm in the waiting area. I'm on my computer. So I'm like head down. I ended up starting talking to this couple next to me about the wait because they had said like, oh, it's a few minutes. And I didn't realize how long it was because I was on my computer, but 40 minutes had gone by and they asked me, how long did they tell you the wait was going to be? So we started talking and it's actually so funny. They were super short staffed and like multiple servers called off. So when they came to get me to sit down, the hostess said, do you guys want to all sit together? Because we were talking. And she said, you'll get seated faster. We only have one server in the whole restaurant. So I was kind of like, okay, I wanted to work on my book while I was sitting here and that's not going to happen. But I was like, they seem nice. Like, this is like, I'm just going to go with it. So I look at them and I'm like, sure, you guys can sit at my table.
Yeah.
So the three of us sit down.
That's so funny.
We're all just kind of laughing. We were like, hi. We didn't know each other's names yet. And so as we're sitting down, I don't know what happened, but somewhere within the first few sentences, one of them mentioned that they have custody of their grandchild because their daughter was incarcerated for drugs.
Oh my gosh.
So I got total chills and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I'm writing a book. I'm telling them this is why I have my computer here. And they were just in tears. They were like, we don't know what to do with her. We have custody of him. Like, we're retired. And now we have this young child that we're caring for. And they told me all about her addiction and where it led and how she felt. And it was crazy. Like, I was already starting the publishing process. So I didn't want to be like, do you guys want to be a part of the story? If it was even like a couple weeks prior, I probably would have asked if they were interested in sharing. But it was so beautiful. And so we sat through dinner talking about this and as a mom, how she feels. And she's coming up on being released. And so they were a little nervous. And it was just crazy that I'm like, I'm literally sitting here and I'm talking to these people and they're going through exactly what I'm writing about.
That's so
like
wild.
I could touch them. They're not far.
Yeah.
We're all sitting right by each other and everyone's going through it. And they were brave enough. They mentioned it. They're the ones that brought it up because they were talking about their grandson. And so it's just crazy because to your point of like, there's just millions of people that are going through this. I think that our criminal justice system does not really set up for success as far as being released. We partner at my company with a handful of facilities where when they're released, they're in contact with us and we start treatment like immediately upon release. And it's so beautiful because like some of them get out, they don't have anywhere to go. They don't even have a device. They're doing their visit with us at the library. They're borrowing a phone from somebody. And so it's like before they even, they don't even know where they're going next. They're in contact with us.
Amazing.
And so it's very nice to see like more of that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you know, you're just repeating the same cycle. And there's a couple stories that you'll see in the book. I interviewed a judge. And so he talks about drug court and recidivism rates and things like that. And then there's also somebody who founded a culinary program where previously incarcerated can come to Ohio. It's very cool.
Edwin's?
Yes.
So cool.
Oh my gosh.
I went to an event there.
Did you?
Yeah.
Like the greatest place.
Incredible.
And their recidivism rate is so low. So the Cleveland Browns fund the transportation. You could come from Utah, you get out of prison, you come to Cleveland, and you now you're in a culinary program and they provide childcare and they have case managers. And then once you graduate, you can get a job at Edwin's or any of these other affiliated restaurants. Like it's very, very cool. And so we need more of that is what I was going to say 100%. Is because like you're just, like you mentioned before, Band-Aids, you're just repeating the same cycle if we're not setting people up for success.
Yes.
And it's not just with our prison system. It's also like maybe the rehabs or maybe like healthcare. Exactly. Like there's so much that we can do to like try to set people up for success.
Absolutely.
Give them the resources that they need, put them in the right places. And then it is up to them. You know, maybe some people don't want it.
Right.
But I think
if you
it's
have
an option.
no chance
Exactly.
to get help,
Exactly.
how are you going to?
Yep.
You know? Are you guys a nonprofit?
No.
Okay. Wow, that's cool.
We're a startup company. So it's taking off pretty quickly, like I mentioned, but we serve about 8 states. And so we're just growing. Ohio is one of them. And so
so are the patients paying?
Insurance.
Insurance.
There's self-pay options, but we also are partnered with Medicaid, Medicare, you know, all the commercial insurances. Before we open in a new state, we try to make sure that we're partnered with Medicaid so that we can at least offer that. And then we build different contracts with commercial insurances too. So like most Ohio insurances, and I think all, if not almost all of Ohio Medicaids, like we're partnered with.
Got it.
So it's very cool. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, because that's the hard part is like, even when it comes to like therapists and stuff, it's like if it's not covered by insurance or a means in which people can access it, it's so difficult.
It's very difficult.
Yeah, no, Edwin's is very cool. I went to an event there and it's like, once again, like the nicest employees and people working.
Yep.
You know? I cannot wait to read your book.
Yay.
Like, I'm so excited. Like I said, I feel like I'm personally intrigued by this subject, and I am so excited to see what you do next. I don't think you even realize how powerful it is and that you're just at the beginning.
I went to the Mount Carmel Feast over the weekend, and there were people coming up to me that I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they know my parents, they know my family, they saw my Facebook post saying this. And I'm like, it was my first time in person. I've been getting a lot of messages. First of all, I launched the book just a little over a week ago. So it's literally been a week.
So funny.
So I've been getting a lot of messages, but I haven't been in person seeing this, and the reactions I was getting from people crying, hugging me, you're going to change the world. Like, I want to get in contact with you. I have this person I want to get in contact. And I knew that this was needed, which is why I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
But I don't think I realized how it was going to be received. I kind of thought that people would, you know, maybe silently read it, or maybe someone would message me, you know, on the side, but it has been the complete opposite. It was like very explosive, people calling and texting my family members.
Beautiful.
And like, so I think I know there's a lot to be done in this community.
Yes.
But there's a lot of people that want to be alongside of it, which is, what you need. It takes a village, and there's just going to be, I think, a lot of opportunity to connect with people on like what they can bring. And we can all work together and build something that is meaningful and it's beneficial and it provides community and resources and support and break the stigma, because I mean, pretty much every family is connected somehow, whether it's within their household, if it's extended family, if it's a coworker. So I think there's going to be a lot of people that want to be a part of something that helps this particular population of people.
Yeah. And I think that connection and that community is what changes things.
Exactly.
And it's really how I always say, it's like alone we can heal, but together we're a force. And there's such an opportunity in this world for a shift in a positive direction. And you're spearheading that. It's such a beautiful thing. Congratulations on writing the book. And like I said, I know this is just the beginning for you. So I'm so honored that we've had a chance to connect, and I can see the heart behind the work that you're doing, and so many other people can connect with you and learn more about the purpose behind the book. Where can people buy it?
It's on Amazon.
It's called The Other Side.
The Other Side of Addiction. Yep. I also have a Substack, which I want to continue sharing more stories over there. The QR code for the Substack's in the back of the book. But the Substack is The Other Side of Addiction XX. And I want to share stories because, like I said, there's a lot of people who truly wanted to write, and it just emotionally was not the right time.
Right.
So I was like, there will be other opportunities. Do not force this out. So I want to share stories on Substack, like, for one, for people to connect with, but two, to continue giving people a voice.
Absolutely.
So hopefully the Substack is something that I can keep moving forward with more stories.
That's so beautiful. And then do you want to share your Instagram page, or do you want to kind of just like keep everyone on the Substack?
I'd say on the Substack, I'm going to try, as you mentioned earlier, I'm not very active. My social media, I post once a year, and it's my dog's birthday on my Instagram. Facebook, I'm more active on. Instagram.
Facebook,
yes.
And your Facebook is?
Marisa Marie.
Okay.
And then I also created the Other Side of Addiction Facebook page.
Got it.
So it's The Other Side of Addiction Facebook, The Other Side of Addiction on Amazon to get the book, and then The Other Side of Addiction XX on Substack.
Very
I want to build from there. Like I mentioned, I am shocked at the overwhelming amount of support.
Yeah.
And people are asking for this and for that. And can we have this speaking engagement? And what about this meeting in this community? And so I wanted to build a space to share all of that out. And so the Facebook page is where I'll probably target that. But I think I'll probably build something on Instagram, but you could find it at all of those places for now.
Amazing. Yeah. We'll link them all below. We'll link the book and where to shop it.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to read it.
Yes,
so
I'm
excited to connect with you today.
I know, it's been great.
Thank you, Marisa, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
If you guys like today's episode, please like and subscribe at YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. We also can connect via community at TheCheekyClean and Raw the Pod. And we'll be back with next week with more real conversations. Thanks, Marisa.
Thank you.